Welcome, everyone, and thanks for making the choice to join us on another episode of Freelance Mom TV. And today I'm going to be introducing you to a woman named Levine, and she is the owner and founder of a company called LawSchoolExpert.com. A question I have, and I know a question that a lot of people have, is how do I make money selling my expertise? What are some options that I have? What are some ways to do that? Now, Anne chose the consulting route, and she's been able to make a six-figure income doing so. She's been running her company since 2004. She's written 2 books, and she's working on a third, and she's actually raising 2 children while she's doing all of this. So I wanted to talk to her, wanted to share her story with you, and I try to get as much information out of her as I could so you can learn from her successes, from her challenges, and from her running her business. So come on over, get a cup of coffee, get a glass of wine, get whatever you need, and come over and listen to the interview because you're going to learn a lot from Anne. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to first ask you, I know we were talking earlier, you started this company back in 2004, so you've been doing this for quite a while. So can you just sort of paint a picture of what you were doing before Law School Expert and how you came to come up with Law School Expert?
Okay, so I was fired in a humiliating and dramatic way from my job as a litigator. I just had a baby, my first, and she was 4 months old. And ever since I'd said I was pregnant, I sort of saw the writing on the wall that my boss wasn't too thrilled with my recent developments. And so I sort of knew it was coming, and it was causing me a lot of anxiety, obviously. And it was June of 2004 when I walked in one day, winning a big hearing and very happy with myself, and he said, "Okay, Anne, you're done." And even though I'd sort of known it was coming, I was not prepared. My plan was to ask for severance and start knocking on doors of other lawyers.
Yeah.
Did those things, and I got a little severance, but the door knocking didn't go so well. It's a small town I live in, and all the other lawyers knew I just had a baby, and I guess that doesn't make you especially appealing as a young litigator. So one day I'm walking the baby in the park with a friend who's walking her baby in the park, and all of a sudden I started talking about how I'd been director of admissions for different law schools before I was litigating, and I should do something where I'm helping people who are applying to law school. I just said it out loud, randomly, and I went home and started researching and spent a week finding out, how do you take credit cards and how do you have a website? This was 2004, and how do you start a business and how do you get a business line? I knew nothing. And a week later, I said to my husband, I think it's going to cost about $1,400 to start this business. And that's with me doing a free template website. That's basic. And he said, well, how about $700? And I'm like, look, I think it's $1,400, which was the size of my unemployment check. And I'm like, I think we need to do it. And he said, okay. And so we did it. And 3 weeks later, I doubled my money. So that's how we started.
Wow, that's amazing. And I've heard, and I'm sure you have too, I've heard so many stories of people who've actually been laid off or they've been fired or somewhere, they were unemployed, and it was sort of exactly what they needed to start their own thing. It was like the kick in the pants that they needed.
Best thing that ever happened. There's no question. I always say it's the second best thing. The first was meeting my husband. Was this. It's been the best thing for our lives.
No, it sounds like it. And I'm always curious because some people, when they do become unemployed, they might just go and think, because there's 2 paths. You can go find another job or you can start your own thing. But some people might not even think, or it might not even cross their mind to go start another company. So why did you even think you went down that path versus just going to look for another job?
I have no idea. Well, I did both. I had 3 months between the time I was fired and the time that this idea popped in my head because I hadn't found another job. But I also think I'm not someone to sit around. It's my nature. I'm not going to sit and wait for something to happen. It's very much in my nature to make things happen. I wouldn't say that I was naturally entrepreneurial, but my family, my dad's a tenured professor, my mom was a nurse. Entrepreneurialism did not run in the blood. But but my husband's family is very entrepreneurial, and so I'd sort of seen it secondhand, and I was like, oh, this is something people do, and I think it was just a lot of good gumption, you know. I don't think there was a secret, like what made me do one or the other. I just think it was, I didn't think it through enough to think that there could be risks. I just thought, let's try it.
Yeah, and do it.
Which you can do with a service-based business that you can't do with a product-based business.
That's very true. And I was going to ask you about that because I noticed that you went down the path. So when you started thinking about your offerings and what you were actually going to sell, you decided to sell your expertise because you have a background in admissions. So what a perfect way to actually sell that expertise. But why did you go down the path of consulting versus offering trainings or any type of product?
Well, I think part of it is just what the market does, and I needed a worldwide reach. The trainings, you know, I think to me, helping someone through the entire process is the reward. I mean, that's how you really make an impact. I can write a book and hope that that the advice I put in that book helps people, but when I'm working one-on-one with someone, I know they're implementing it, and I know I'm there to help them the whole way, and I know that they're going to see, in almost every case, a really positive outcome from that. So, to me, that's what I wanted to do.
No, that sounds great. You wanted to offer the actual service so you can help, and you've actually helped. I don't know what the number is today, but I remember reading 1,500.
Well, yeah, my husband asked me this the other day, and I think it's probably been close to 2,000 people personally that I've worked with over the last 9 years. But I think that you know, it's more that our company has served in other ways. I now have a couple of employees, and but I would think 2,000 is a roundabout pretty good number for what we've done. And who I've worked with personally.
Wow, that's great. What an impact. That's pretty amazing.
I think the bigger impact, honestly, and I'm sure you'll talk about this because I know a lot of your readers are blog people, and I think the blog is really the number one way that I reach masses. And I've been blogging for, I think like I'm an old-time blogger now because I've been blogging since 2006.
Wow.
So I think that, you know, there are ways to reach everyone, and there are ways to reach a few, and I think that between the blog and the books and the consulting service, I'm sort of hitting all of the markers. Some people I know I'll never make $1 from, and that's okay. They might refer a friend to my blog who might want consulting services or what have you. That's okay. But I think I've got something for the person who wants to pay nothing, the person who wants to pay $10 for an audiobook, the person who, you know, wants the full-on consulting help. So I think that's been a way to reach a lot of different levels of people.
Yeah, no, we can talk about that now. That's fine. I mean, I think anybody with your longevity and anybody who's been in business successfully as long as you have, I think they've had to master sales and marketing, period. You just have to. And it sounds like you have certain demographics that you're targeting, and through your book, through your blog, and I also noticed you do video. So you're on Blog Talk Radio and that sort of thing. So what are some of the things that, when we talk about marketing and sales, what are some of the things that actually really work the best for you during this experience? And we can start even in the beginning, because I know, like we talked about, you started back in 2004. So what were you doing then to actually get your first clients?
2004 and 2005, I put everything into Google AdWords.
Okay.
I decided, even back then, that if someone was thinking about something, they were Googling it, and that's where I was going to put my dollars. I only once tried a print ad years later. It was stupid. I'll never do that again. It's so over. Even though it was in a very specialized magazine, like, if people are reading the magazine, they're also online. So I'm all about concentrating the dollars. Even now, my dollars are spent in Google AdWords. So that was how I started. And then I got to a point where I was pretty successful doing that, and I had a really lame template website, and it was sort of embarrassing, but it was working, and I think that the next thing I did was I decided I was ready for help. I mean, I decided that I didn't have to do everything by myself, and I was ready for the next step. And I reached out to Lori Thomas, who is the web marketing therapist. And she's all over the place, webmarketingtherapy.com. And she happened to live in Santa Barbara. And I knew of her through acquaintances. And we got together, I think, for lunch or coffee. And I just felt like she knew what I needed to do next that I didn't know. And she's the one who taught me about blogging. And blogging changed my business. Wow. I think that people make a lot of mistakes with blogging. I think a lot of people start a blog and hope the audience will come, and then they'll think of what to sell those people. And that's not that's not my model. I'll just put it that way. I'm not going to say that doesn't work, but I'm going to say that was not my model. My model was I had a business, I had expertise, and Lori said, Anne, people need to know your expertise. You need to become an expert by speaking out on these topics. And I'm someone who I love to write, and I write quickly, and so blogging is very easy for me. So I started blogging in 2006, and I don't know exactly, but I want to say within a year or so, I had 100,000 readers.
Wow.
So part of it was just the right timing. The market wasn't saturated yet with blogging on this topic, but I also did it smart. I learned what words to use. I had Lori help me, what headlines, what topics, things like that, and to blog frequently. And so that really took my business to a new level.
Wow.
So that was I still say that was the number one thing I think that did it, was blogging. And I think that constant reinvention is important, but consistently doing what always worked for you is even more important. And so the blog is still there.
No, I totally agree, because when you're starting a company, you're going to see spikes, right? It's sort of like a heartbeat when you think about your sales or your revenue, and when you see that spike, it's kind of like, how did I get that spike? Whether it's traffic, whether it's revenue, or whatnot. And so it sounds like for your blog, you found some spikes within that for people coming to your actual website.
Yes, and with the spikes, I could give myself pay raises, right? Because I started off charging almost nothing. I mean, my first year that I started this, I said, well, my only goal was to get people who would be testimonials on my website the next year, So I think I charged $350 for what I now charge almost $4,000 for. But and that's a whole other issue is how you price your services. But every time that spike you refer to went up, and my expertise became more known, and I became more trusted in the field, and I could demand a higher rate.
Wow, and you did. So you've established that throughout the years. At what point did you start to raise your prices within your business?
I raised my prices every year.
Oh, okay.
Almost every year.
Okay.
Raised my prices. So I don't remember. Sometimes I do it mid-year. Sometimes I do it on a hunch, like let's see what happens if. And only once have I gone back on a price increase.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm curious about clients. So I love the stories about your very first client. So who was actually your very first client? Do you remember?
God. I don't remember her name, but what I remember was funny is instead of sending me things by email, she literally mailed me a binder of her materials to review. I didn't know what to do with it. I think I made like handwritten notes on her things and mailed it back to her. I never heard from her again.
Oh, that's so funny.
So that one I remember. And I do remember a couple of the clients I had in those first few months because my business phone was in my bedroom. I had a 2-bedroom house, and I had a baby. So I would hear the phone ring in the bedroom, stash the baby, run across the house to pick up the phone, and then I'd have to hope the baby would be quiet 2 rooms away. I've been there, done that.
It's hard.
Yeah, so I do remember having some of those conversations with clients back then. I remember one in particular who went on to Duke Law School that year, and I started thinking, okay, then this is gonna work.
Yeah. I can do this.
I can do this. I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's right. And where did you get your first customers? Was it just from people you knew or friends and family?
It was from people I knew.
Oh.
It was all internet.
Wow. So just using Google AdWords, people would start finding you and start contacting you, and then you built testimonials, and then the list goes on. You kept on finding more clients based on your blog and video and building that expertise.
And then eventually the book, I wrote my first book is 4 years ago. So you can do that. 2009, I guess?
Yes.
I published The Law School Admission Game. And at first I think I thought it would be for those people who were reading my blog but not paying me anything, at least I'd be making $5 off them.
Yeah.
It turned out to be completely different. And it blew out of the water. And it really became how people got to know me, and then they would call me. And now, I would say 80% of the people who call me to inquire about my services have already read my book. They already feel like they know me. They've already seen my videos. They've already read my blog posts. By the time they call me, they're ready to sign up. They know who they're getting, because my videos on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever they are, my blog talk radio shows, I talk just like I'm talking to you now, the same chair. And they know me, and they know how I do things. And so the calling me, the decision's already been made. And the book was a big, big part of that.
Wow, that's great. Because how did you come about coming up with the idea of just, I'm going to write a book then?
Well, I always knew I should write a book. I mean, I always knew that. I mean, if you have expertise on something and the market's not completely saturated, and you like to write, you're a good writer, you should write a book. I waited because I wanted 5 years of experience as law school expert behind me before I published the book.
Oh, okay.
I didn't just want to be this person with a couple years experience making law school admission decisions, writing a book. I wanted to have a little more experience before I published the book. I also think the idea of the book was daunting, I won't lie. And I also had 2 kids during those first 5 years of the business. So a few things going on. But I knew that it would be the right next step. And so that it was a very natural next step from the blog.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it sounds like it's been huge for impact and building your expertise. So I'm assuming if somebody's listening and they want to sell their expertise or put out services or products, that, writing a book might be a good step for them depending on where they're at in their business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Writing a book is great for a couple of reasons. One is, especially if it sells well on Amazon. Now, if you're only going to send it to your 3 friends and they're going to put their 3 reviews about how wonderful a book it is, no one's going to buy that book. But if that's a whole other video chat.
Right.
One book. But if you start gathering credible and sincere and thorough reviews, and your book is really well endorsed, I mean, even if it's self-published, which all of my books are, you can really build something, and then that helps with everything that you do. It comes up in search engine optimization. It just increases your reach exponentially.
No, it does, and I can totally see that, because I think I was telling you I was doing some research on your book and that sort of thing, and all of a sudden I see your picture everywhere, and so buy this on Amazon, buy this book, buy that book. It's been great.
Well, that means everything's working.
It does. It totally means everything's working.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think this is part of longevity as well, kind of trying to figure out the puzzles that you have early on and some of the challenges that you might be facing early on. What were some of those for you? Some puzzles that you had to solve early on?
That's a really interesting question. I had no business background, so I think people who have business backgrounds and worked in more corporate environments or even in small businesses before would have some advantage. I didn't know anything from taxes to filing to, everything was a learning curve. I think for me, the puzzle pieces, whatever you call them. I think for me that was, I tried to figure everything out myself. I tried to be my own search engine optimization specialist and my own bookkeeping specialist and my own IT specialist and all those different people that a real business has. I decided I was going to learn how to do all of that instead of just reaching out initially to people who have that expertise and sort of bring them on as consultants for when I had problems. I waited like 2.5 years to do that. Part of that is a lack of confidence. I'll be honest, some of it was just money, It didn't have the money. It didn't even occur to me to spend money on that. But I think if I were to do it all over again, I would say that's where I would have gotten off to an even faster start maybe if I initially put more capital in and hired experts from the beginning rather than spend my own wheels to figure it all out.
Yeah. No, and I guess there's 2 schools of thought on that, because when you do figure it out, you actually do learn. And so you can, even when you hire somebody, you're able to kind of give them direction a little bit better since you've kind of been there and you know kind of the nitty-gritty of things. But I know, I mean,
in my nature, if I'm the expert of one thing, I'm very good at that. Okay? And then I'm going to hire someone else who's very good at her thing. Okay? But I'm mediocre in those other things. I don't want me running those things. I want to have someone who's an expert running my marketing and someone who's an expert, managing my book sales. And I don't want me to be dabbling and messing it up. Like, I'm good at what I do. I'm good at consulting people about how to get into law school. Let me do what I'm really great at. Let me hire you to do what you are really great at. And I think I started doing that after 2 years, and I just sort of never looked back. It was actually not until 3 years ago that I hired my first employee. Wow. And that changed my life. That was like, oh my God. I said to my husband, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? He's like, well, you had to wait till you were ready. I'm like, are you joking? Like, I could have done this 5 years ago and you never told me? Like, so some of it you just have to be willing to let go at some point.
Yes. No, that's good advice, because I totally agree. I don't want to do the things that I'm not good at, nor do I like doing. I mean, I am that kind of person that I do want to know just a little bit about it so I can intelligently, give guidance to that person, but I'm totally all for virtual assistants and any kind of help that I can get. So,
well, look, you can say the exact same thing about being a mom, right? There are certain things I need to be the one who's present for, and I don't need to be the one who's doing it for my kids, but I need to know that it's happening.
That's right.
So it's the same.
It is.
To check in and make sure they're okay and that they're getting what they need and it's all going how it's supposed to go. But it's the same with your business, and both ways I feel pretty guilt-free, because that's what you do. I mean, I can't be everything to the business. I can't be everything to the family. So you got to find what you're good at and what's quality for you, and do that.
No, you're so right. I can't agree more. Definitely. And when we're talking about your operations, I'm curious, what are your actual costs? Like, I mean, you don't have to give me numbers, but I mean, what do you actually spend money on?
Advertising.
Okay.
And insurance.
Oh.
Insurance. Okay. I'm married to an insurance defense attorney whose father was an insurance defense attorney. So you're getting a theme here. But he said, the first thing he said when I said I wanted to open the business is my husband said, you need insurance. So that's a big expense, and it's a hard one to lay out because you don't feel you get a tangible benefit from it. But God forbid anyone ever sues me saying I told them something horrible. I have a defense mechanism to step in. And, likewise, if one of my employees is, God forbid, driving somewhere and gets into a car accident, she happened to be going to the post office to mail some of my books, just be covered, because otherwise your whole personal finances can get involved. So those are my two biggest expenses. Now my biggest expense, those were the biggest expenses for most of the last 9 years, but since I started hiring employees, consultants have become my number one expense, outside of my pay, obviously. So outside of my pay, it's I have a independent consultant who does hourly consulting, so she's a big expense, but she's a revenue-producing expense, so that doesn't count.
That's true.
Because she produces enough to make it worthwhile. This year I redid my website, and that is a huge expense. Everything entailed with that and the services and the expertise I needed, I probably spent $30,000 to redo my website this year.
Wow.
So this year, that was my biggest expense. So I think it varies, but consistently it's been Google AdWords has been my biggest expense, and then the expertise that I need from people. But overhead is, this is a room in my house. Okay, this is where I work.
Right.
My employees work from their homes. So I don't have those kinds of overhead expenses. Even the books don't really cost that much to produce, thanks to Amazon's Create Space. They're almost printed on demand systems, so there's not a lot of capital required in a service-based business.
And that's what's great. And you can do this all from home. And when you're working out at the gym, nobody knows you're working out at the gym. and when you're...
But, I'm working from the gym. I'm working from everywhere. I think some people may think that starting your own business as a work-at-home mom is cute. And, it's so cute that you have a little hobby to dabble in. And all I can say is that if that's how you think about your business, it ain't going anywhere.
That's very true.
There's no dabbling in this. And I always say in any interviews like on this topic that I do that without a supportive husband who thinks my business is the number one priority in our household, without that, none of this happens. Okay? Because if I also had a husband who insisted that I cook dinner every night and that I don't have help cleaning the house and I don't have help with the kids, there's no way any of the business stuff happens. And if you don't have that level of support and you're not committed and your priorities are in different directions rather than in one direction, then it doesn't happen. Because it doesn't happen by accident. I mean, I am working at the gym and I am working at the grocery store. I seriously, yesterday in Whole Foods, I'm on the phone with a client, like picking out bananas and like, okay, yes, you should transfer law schools. I mean, it's just what you do.
It's true. And when you're on vacation too, it's hard to turn it off even then.
I work from Hawaii. I work from Australia. I've worked from everywhere except Tahiti. I refuse to work in Tahiti, but everywhere else I've been, I work, and that's okay. I'm not bitter about that. Like, it lets me live a great lifestyle, and I love what I do, and it's my cell phone number on my website. I want to be accessible. I think that's the number one thing I have going for me. So in terms of my business and what makes me a good choice for people. So I'm happy to be responsive and talking at the gym.
No, exactly. I am too. I appreciate the flexibility, and you're right. I have my husband's full support, and it does a lot. I wouldn't be able to do it without that for sure. So you have to have that. And if you're a single mom, you can do it as well. And there's all kinds of choices out there.
That's
if you're not.
different. What you can't have is someone who doesn't respect what you're doing.
Yes.
Kind of, there's no one there almost. I mean, that would be hard for other reasons. But if your partner doesn't respect what you're doing and help make it happen in terms of, hey guys, mommy's on the phone,
right.
If that doesn't happen, then you have forces working against each other. You can't have someone who's going to resent your success or resent your motivation or gumption or whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, that's key.
No, that's very true. And you said something that's interesting. You said you're not dabbling in a business. So can you talk about, and of course, you don't have to give me numbers, but can you talk about the fact that this has been lucrative for you and this is actually a business that is allowing you to, make a good revenue?
Sure. So the way I usually say this is, so I mentioned that earlier in the interview that I was a practicing lawyer. So I had a good salary, not quite six figures, but I had a very good salary. When I stopped working, I would say the first year of the business, which was really only 4 or 5 months of the year, because I started in August, I made about $30,000, okay? Which to me wasn't a lot of money, but at least it was better than an unemployment check.
Yes.
Okay, it was certainly floating things, and it was meaningful, to say the least, And then my second year, I make what I think I would call in the past a part-time lawyer salary, or a full-time paralegal salary. It's about the same. Maybe I don't remember exactly. Maybe I doubled it. Maybe I made 65 or something, which I was like, okay, okay, that's all right. I'm doing something here. And then the next year, I replaced my income. Okay. And I think that's right. I think it was my third year where I replaced my previous income. And then I've had a growing six-figure income ever since. I always say I started out, as the part-time secretary and now the senior partner. And that doesn't happen automatically. But it also happened at a time in my life when I could sustain it. And, you're young, starting out, you can put up with a lot.
It's true.
It'd be much harder at this point in my life to do that and to build something. But I think then, anything is pretty good. Like, I was pretty excited to make my first, $1,000. That was awesome, And I still get excited every time I do it, every time I get a new client, because I think this is something I'm doing. I'm doing it for myself. I don't have to, kiss up to a boss or what have you. I have to do a good job at what I'm doing, and I'll be paid for it. And that there's a lot of satisfaction in that. I always say I think the best job security is being self-employed, because no one can run you out of business except you.
It's true. And there's not the security of working for somebody anymore, because it's just as risky as starting your own company.
It is. you don't know how long it'll last, and you don't know what that company will do, or if they'll cut your salary, or they'll cut your hours, or they'll ship your job off to India. I mean, you don't know. And so here I feel like I'm doing something real and helping people and supporting my family with it. So I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It really is. I wanted to ask you one thing about criticism, because I know in the type of in the type of business that you're in.
I wish this were vodka, but it's just
no. Well, I've talked to so many people who run a service business, and they do face criticism, and there's always that bad review. There's always
no one has ever complained about me ever.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I know, and I'm sure not. But I'm just wondering.
So, everyone says you're supposed to have a thick skin. I don't have a thick skin. I might act like I have a thick skin, but I don't. And I will say this: that over the years, when you put yourself out there into the world, you're opening yourself up for good and bad, right? I've opened myself up to a lot of wonderful experiences, meeting amazing people who I've been able to help reach their goals, and I've opened myself up to people who think all lawyers are evil and who think no one should ever go to law school and law school is a crock. And probably they're all right. I mean, I'm just kidding. But I've been the target of some of that. Now, only once in 9 years have I ever been the target of internet crap, as I like to call it, that has been directed personally toward me. Okay, in a way, by someone who actually worked with me. Only once, and it really wasn't that bad a thing that she said. Okay? All the other times, it's been crazy anonymous people. I've had about 6 years ago, I had this underground discussion forum for junior lawyers that no longer exists today. And they put pictures of me, they discussed, my attractiveness levels, whether they would spend the night with me, whether I was uglier than Mayim Bialik or prettier than Mayim Bialik. Really awful, hateful, anti-woman, anti-Jewish, anti-everything crap. And that was really hard to deal with. So I'll actually tell you what I did. So I'm pretty proud of it in hindsight.
Oh, good.
I wrote a blog post pointing all of my 100,000 readers to that article, saying, if you're going to behave like this as a lawyer, please don't enter the profession. The forum pulled down the post. You cannot find it on the internet today.
Wow.
You need to fight, those things. But it is upsetting. I think it's really hard for businesses that are on Yelp. I think it's horrible. I think, they're always, especially, those are product-based businesses usually, but like one person's bad experience and they get bitter about something random and it's everywhere. And I think that's unfortunate, really unfortunate. It doesn't come into play so much when you have a nationwide business like I do.
Yeah.
But I really feel for businesses, like when I am Googling a business or looking at a restaurant Open Table and deciding where to go, at least on Open Table, people are nice. But people on the internet, there's a lot of haters, and you have to be strong enough to either put them in their place or, even smarter, leave them alone.
No, it's
pretty. And just hope that, and actually, one of the great byproducts that happened that time that all the evil stuff went out was I put it on my Facebook page, and all of my Facebook friends went to that site and told people how horrible they were and how much I'd helped them and to leave me alone. And I never asked them to. And it felt really great. It felt really great that people were, I never asked anyone to do that. And then the next time I looked at the site, there were all these comments from anonymous people who had worked with me that were saying things that were really great. So, you have to trust that you're doing something good, and not everyone's going to appreciate it, and you have to be okay with that.
No, it's very true, and that's what I've heard, too, with handling criticism. A lot of times, if you're offering what you're offering, and you just keep your passion going and keep focused, that your customers will actually be the first to defend you before you even have to, which is kind of what happened there. So, that's great.
And I've done it for other people, and I think we all have a responsibility to do that for people. I recently, my husband was reading a column recently about someone we know locally, and people had, put blog comments about, really negative, people that didn't even know the person, and I didn't even think twice. I got on my iPad and I started typing, this person made a big difference for me, and here's how. And you got to be willing to be the credible voice out there, because there's karma, right? I assume. So it's important.
No, it is. And it sounds like you have a thicker skin than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah, you should have seen me that morning.
But then you get over it quickly. Maybe that's it.
I still remember it 5 years later.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
It doesn't go away. And I still remember the comment from the one client who put something on a form that said she wasn't happy with my service. I remember who it was, and I remember what she said, and it was 4 years ago. So I think you don't let it go. No. But you have to keep going.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah.
There was a quote I posted on my Facebook, and now I can't even remember it, but it was kind of like, do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. And it's talking about criticism. And if you're not out there doing things, and you're going to be criticized. So that means you're actually doing something. So it's almost like a compliment, I guess.
Yeah.
The fact that you are getting noticed and you are getting some sort of criticism, that's another way to look at it.
It's an extension of success, right? I mean,
yes.
We say in this country that we love people to be successful, but really it's not true. We really love unsuccessful people to be successful.
Yeah, we like those stories. We do.
Yeah.
It's very true. We do like those stories. Well, one last thing. What would you say to that woman that has an expertise and has a lot of experience in one area, and they do want to turn that into a business? Are there 3 pieces of advice or action steps that they can take to kind of help them along their path?
Okay, this is totally off the cuff, but I would say, obviously, number one, think about how you want to provide the service and if other people are providing it the same way. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you want to provide it locally, look locally. And if you want to provide internet-related service, look on the internet. See who's doing it. See whether you measure up, whether you can do something better or different. Mm-hmm. Another thing you could do, by the way, as a first step is reach out to those people. If you're not really sure you want to start your own business, the way I've had my consultant on staff with me who does law school admission consulting. She's been on my staff for more than 3 years now, and the way that happened is she didn't feel she could start her own business, so she called me and thought we'd be a good fit. We were a fabulous fit, and she's been with me ever since. So if you're not feeling like you really could do it on your own, that's okay too. But reach out to and look at people who are doing it. I would say, number 2, have confidence and make the decision to do it. Don't just think about it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Just do it if you're going to do it. That's one thing. Do the research and put it into action rather than dream and wish and whatever. And the more people you tell you're going to do it, the more likely you are to do it. Because it's really hard to go back on it. If you see someone at next year's Thanksgiving, they say, last Thanksgiving you said you were going to start this. And it's really embarrassing if you have to say, oh yeah, I'm working on that. You know what? I did. I'm starting a website. It'll be launched by New Year's. Just do it. I think I have a sort of funny story about that from my own experience, actually. I had started talking about how I was starting this company, and I probably was talking about it with a group of ladies, and I had baby in my arms, right, 6 months old, and one of my friends later told me she thought, oh yeah, sure you're going to do that, good for you, good luck with that.
Right.
And now she laughs about it, so... don't worry about what people are going to say now. Worry about what they're going to say in 10 years when you've done it.
That's very true. I love that. That's such great advice. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I wanted you to say this quote. I read it somewhere on another written interview from but it's not something you said. It's something your dad said. Do you remember the quote?
My dad said?
Yeah, it's like a mantra that you live by.
Oh.
I'll have to look it up. I thought it was hilarious.
I saw this. Was it the illegitimate uncover? Really?
Well, yeah, no. You know what?
Now I'm confused.
Oh, yeah, no. I will look it up and I will post it on down.
Don't let the bastards get you down quote.
I think that was it.
Just said it very poorly in Latin. But yes, I mean, go for it. Do what you're going to do. And the people who you serve well will be eternally grateful and thankful and appreciative. And if you have a good stream of those people, you almost don't need anybody else.
I love it. See, I knew that quote meant something good. I knew it.
That's great. You did your research.
I try. Well, no, thank you again for being here. And I know that the people that are watching are going to receive a ton of value. And where's the best place to find you if they want to get some more information on you?
So, obviously at my website, lawschoolexpert.com. I'm on Twitter at Ann Levine. And I'm on Facebook and everywhere else, LinkedIn, where have you.
Awesome. Thanks for letting us get into your brain today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Bye.